How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you?
That's difficult to answer.
Some idea.
I am not completely like other people.
What do you mean by that?
People dislike me because I am not completely like them. I am trying to do with my life something which few people try to do, and this influences my thinking and consequently my action.
What is it you're trying to do with your life?
Play the piano for people.
I'm not clear. How is it that playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.
this the end? There's a noise inside my head of crying people facing death. Is this the end? Is this the end? Oh, I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final genocide. What have we done to the world? What have we done to the world? I'm burning in the stone. There's no place to hide. I'm burning in the stone. This is the final
Who the fuck is Karlyn? She's just some sweet lady. She's like in a knitting. She does like a knitting stream. She's like a knitting YouTuber. She does knitting.
Can we grow up a little bit and
Alt
not
Girl
be
sent $200.
retarded?
Have you
Please.
seen the work of Karlyn Borysenko? Anti-commie cult leader and is obsessed with looking at what actual far-left communists are talking about and organizing today, infiltrating them. They infiltrated the universities, schools, media. She has the receipts to back it up. Primary source evidence. Infestation is dire and she calls Republicans idiots eating slop. Agree.
Thank you for the big super chat. Yeah, oh, I know Karlyn B. She's solid. She's funny. I
The
like
great
her.
noticer sent $200.
Literally.
So
not
it's,
Ian.
it's not a because I haven't dangled my junk into the combat zone on purpose to get some camera footage, but that's the big part of what's the
Is that
problem.
what you call reporting?
Go
and live
under if
streaming?
you're going to do it.
Yeah,
go
seriously.
undercover. Otherwise, you're wearing a hunk of meat in a lion's den. Nick Shirley, I love you. Take care of yourself, man. Karlyn Borysenko went undercover. Do stuff like that. Like if you want to expose this thing, don't pariah, please.
But Ian, here's and I agree with you to an extent.
I watch these streams, and I've been watching a self-professed fascist named Karlyn, who drinks and basically roasts these live streams. But weirdly, she has apparently embedded herself with Antifa before, and so it's such a funny stream because like.
So they tolerate her?
Oh no, not anymore. She like, no. She's like, I mean, I don't know if she's trolling or not, but on her stream, she's like, I am a fascist.
Right.
So she's proudly proclaiming she's a fascist. I don't know how much of that is trolling, how much of it is real, but conservatives who are drawn to her stream will say things like, these people are funded by George Soros. And it's the funniest thing because she gets so mad. And she's like, get off fucking Fox News. Stop watching that shit. It's all wrong. Do these people look funded? Do these people look like they have money? They're not funded. It's so, and I guess her bigger point is by saying these are funded agitators and not saying what they actually are, which is anti-capitalist revolutionaries, you dilute what's really happening. Because what's really happening, according to her, and I think a fair amount of people, is that the economy is so fucked. The middle class is diminishing so much. The cost of living is so high that this is the perfect soil you need if you wanted communism to grow anywhere.
What up, everyone? Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the show. This is The Cult. I'm Karlyn Borysenko. I'm an analyst and independent journalist that covers the far left in America. And we stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. on this channel. Most days we're covering the far left. Sometimes we do other stuff, but most days we're covering the far left. We also do Socialism Saturday on Saturdays at 6 p.m., where we watch real radical revolutionary socialists every single week. So you guys can see directly from their own trainings, their own workshop, their own online videos, what exactly they're doing and talking about. And I am super, super excited to have our guest here today. I'm going to bring him on in a minute. We're going to be talking to a former member of Antifa today that a number of you have told me to reach out to. And so I did. And we're going to have a great little chat. But before we do that, I just want to go through a couple orders of business. Number one, if you are new to my work, the very best place to start is by heading over to Substack. That is Karlyn, KARLYN.substack.com. And you can click on that big image in the middle of the page that says, new to my work, start here. Because if you are someone who has just found my videos, maybe in the last month or so, you want to get up to speed really quickly, I create a ton of content. I actually create more anti-communist content than anyone else on the internet. If you want to fact check me on that, go right ahead and name a name that creates more anti-communist content than me. So it can be a little bit difficult for some people when they first discover my work. They're like, where do I even start? It's a valid question. So I created this page here where if you're new to my work, you go to the new to my work page, you click on that. And the very best place to start is with my 90-minute introductory video. It is called Re-Education, an anti-communist introduction to the far left. You can find it on Substack. You can find it on YouTube. It is completely free to watch. This is a 90-minute introduction that will go through some of my best clips that I've covered over the years from far left trainings that I've gone into, that I've gone undercover at, to show you exactly what they're saying and to break down their language and understand it. We also have the 4-hour crash course that goes into much greater depth than the 90-minute course does. And then if you're really still excited after all that, check out my introduction to queer Marxism. This is about an hour-long lecture that I gave because I'm currently working on a book about the development and evolution of queer Marxism as a political ideology. And so this is about an hour-long lecture I gave explaining that. And there's stuff that happened in the 70s and the 80s and the 90s and even into the 2000s that you guys don't know about. Just yesterday, we heard Andy No say that this stuff happened after 2019. Well, no, Andy, that's completely wrong. It started in the 50s with the Mattachine Society. That was the first ever queer Marxist organization. It developed through the Compton's Cafeteria Riot, through Stonewall, through the ACT UP movement, through the Bashback movement. And today we have a militant ideology that has developed through all of these different movements that have happened for decades and decades and decades. And I explain that and break it all down for you guys. So that is the very best place to support my work. If you see fit, please sign up for $8 a month, $80 a year. I am 100% funded by you. You guys help me keep my content free for as many people as possible so that we can spread the word and teach people about the far left. And speaking of teaching people about the far left, I am thrilled beyond measure to welcome my guest today. He is Triple B Collective on YouTube. So many of you have reached out to me and asked me to interview Ty, and I'm really excited to do it. You know, we don't get to talk to former far leftists all that often. Every once in a while, a communist will come and talk to us, but we actually, I don't even think we've ever really had many like actual far leftists on the channel. We do have a couple former members of Antifa who do hang around in the audience, but of course they don't necessarily like to be on videos. So I really do appreciate what I've seen so far of Triple B Collective and what he's doing to get this information out there to really give people kind of an inside view. And I'm looking forward to this conversation. I want to encourage everyone to subscribe to his YouTube channel. I did pin it to the top of the chat on both YouTube and Rumble. We've also got it in the chat right now. Chicken Spawn is doing a great job as a mod, making sure those links are in there. But without further ado, I'm going to bring on my guest and welcome Ty to the channel. I'm really glad you're here.
Hello, hello. Thank you for having me. It's an honor.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Now, I want to just start off by doing just a little bit of a general overview. Like, so how did you end up in Antifa?
Short answer, I went looking for it. When the George Floyd riot started popping off, I've always kind of lived my life since high school believing that we were on the edge of World War III and Civil War and that a fight would need to be taken to the government. So whenever they started rioting and protesting down the street, you know, curiosity killed the cat. I went and sought them out for myself.
Now, how old were you when this all started?
I believe I was it 23 to 25, I believe. So it's 20, see if I'm doing the math right. No, I think 21 to age 23. So about 2 years.
Okay. Okay. And so, do you mind telling us where you live in the country when all this is happening?
Yeah, I was in Eugene, Oregon at the time, 2 hours south of Portland.
Okay, so you were like right in one of kind of like the hotbeds of far leftism.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So when you say you went looking for it, how did that all work? Like, where did you go to start looking for it?
Just out in the streets, really. I was kind of, I had a home, but I was out on the streets just doing drugs, being a drunkie, hanging out with strangers, getting into wild, wacky misadventures. So the more the political climate was heating up and kicking off, there's just people all over Eugene that's just kind of their lifestyle. I like to say Antifa is more than an organization. It's a culture. And in areas like Eugene and Portland, it's just everywhere all the time. I found myself going to leftist bars in downtown Eugene, Oregon, meeting a lot of members that way. Actually, one of the bar owners is a millionaire who offered to pay all our bail. Should we punch a cop, break a window, anything like that? So I had that tool under my belt, even though I never got arrested. But I made a lot of connections all over town, essentially. I never belonged to a particular chapter. I just kind of blew where the wind took me. And the way I put it is I was a little minnow in a big pond, but I swam all over the water. So I got to see a lot of what was happening.
I think it's really interesting that you say it's a culture, because that's one of the points that I really do try to impress upon people, is that it's not just about like, it's not just about like, I think people see like things like Rose City Antifa, and they have kind of like that headquarters that people have seen, and they think this is like the secret club where everyone's going to the secret club to have their far left meetings. And I'm like, no, that's actually not how it works. They have all these bookstores all over the country. They control college campuses. They're doing meetings on college campuses, and they're doing organizing there. There are all sorts of just like different mutual aid organizations that have been set up. There are all sorts of, I mean, you said like there are leftist businesses, and I definitely saw that when I was in Portland and in Seattle. There are absolutely like leftist business and collectives and things like that that are all supporting them. And it's like this is a subculture. Do I have that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And two big money makers I think you left off there that I saw a lot of the time: drug dealing, prostitution. Those are two really big money makers in Antifa.
Sex work is definitely something I've seen. I've seen and heard a lot about. I'm going to be honest. I haven't actually interacted with as much of their stuff around drug use. To be honest, I haven't actually seen it directly myself. That's not to say that I disbelieve what you're saying. I'm just saying that that's kind of an area that I think I've heard about from you specifically that I haven't myself witnessed. So can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with that?
Yeah, well, and to be sure, I was rarely out doing drugs in the streets during the protests and the riots because there's cops everywhere. But anytime that me and any of my friends, I had different groups of different people in different places across town. So I would go with different people depending on the day to certain events. But we're always getting hammered. We're always smoking weed. Sometimes I'm doing cocaine, ketamine. Maybe I just finished frying for the last 3 days on LSD. I was really big on psychedelics, as were a lot of my friends. And it's... I like to tell people you've never seen a sober Antifa member in your entire life, or at least I've never met one. Like, we were all on something, and I feel like that's a big part that fuels the cult and their mentality and what makes them so cocky and headsure and, quite frankly, violent.
Yeah, I definitely smelled the weed in Portland, like the whole area outside of the ICE facility. It like reeks of weed, but it's not just leftists smoking it; it's also people on the right smoking it. MAGA was smoking a lot of weed as well, so I think everyone was kind of guilty of that. I also just do want to confirm that Isa here is a former member of Antifa that hangs around in the chat, and he says, "Yep, there were a lot of pills and weeds in the houses back in the day." So I totally do. I do believe that. Antifa, white boy jihad. Well, maybe. So, I mean, let's talk about that. So what is kind of the goal as you saw it? What are they trying to do?
I think what a lot of it is, it's a globalist movement, right? You have this going on in all nations. I think at their core, they want a certain number of things. They want no borders. Clearly, they want a set of eugenics policies. I mean, we've given them years and years and years to say, look at these mutilated children. Look at what we did to the detransitioners. Look at what we're doing to people with mental disabilities. Look what we're doing to gay people. And they have not wanted to hear it. So at this point, they may as well be the SS defending the actions of eugenics in Nazi Germany. So it's clear that they want something along the lines of eugenics. At the end of the day, I've been trying to tell people, like, people see Antifa as a death cult, but it's really a suicide cult. There's not much logic baked into it outside of its narcissistic, immediate, give me what I want right now or I'm going to kill myself values. And, I think for a lot of them, they're an organization, but they're so disorganized that there's no collective goal. Because what I saw when I was drifting around, going from Antifa group to Antifa group to Antifa group, depending on the night, they all hated each other. They all absolutely hated each other.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So because of that, it's like there's no unity. When you have a cult that says you can't watch certain movies, listen to certain music, read certain books, and you've decided to label everything under the sun as fascist, well, when one of your members steps out and says, well, this doesn't really feel fascist, then all of a sudden you're just completely infighting. And, I think the goal for them at the end of the day is just destruction. There's a lot of daddy issues out there. So I think a lot of these kids are trying to prove a point to their parents at the end of the day. They could say it's about George Floyd. They could say it's about trans people, but really that cop window got smashed because daddy did something to you when you were a kid. That's the reality for a lot of them, because that's what they cry about when they go home.
Can you talk to me about the zines?
About the what?
The zines.
The zines?
Yeah, zines. What role do zines play?
I don't know if I'm familiar with that term. Spell it? Maybe I'm mishearing you.
You're not familiar with zines? Z-I-N-E-S?
I don't think so. I was never in the online kind of space of it too much. I was explain it.
Well, I've been to multiple anarchist book fairs, and the main thing that you walk away with at anarchist book fairs are zines. And zines are a staple of literally every single far-left bookstore that I've ever been in. They always have at least one rack of zines. And so I'm a little perplexed, I suppose, that that you were an Antifa and you don't know what zines are.
Are they the little propaganda packets that they pass out at the colleges and stuff? I also really go to far left bookstores because I don't walk into any bookstore that's plastered with rainbow flags and shit. Because
but they're not all like that. They're like this, or these are more formal books. Like these are called zines, and these are very, very.
I didn't know the terminology. They passed those out at the U of O campus. I lived right next to the campus because rent was cheaper, and I had a collection of those that I actually didn't read at the time until I got out, and then I started reading them after, and I was just like, this is horrible. Doesn't make any sense. Fuck me for being a guy. Yeah, I saw a couple of those.
Well, okay. Again, I'm starting to get a little suspicious. If I'm gonna be honest, and now I'm actually starting to get a little suspicious, because you're saying things that I think I have heard from, and I really don't mean any offense, but I want to unpack this a little bit because I want to I don't know that much about you, so I want to make sure that this is coming from a real place. Yeah. So I'm hearing a lot of things that I would call conservative talking points, which is that this is all mommy and daddy issues. They don't know what they're doing. That this is all about mutilation and stuff like that. But I've been reading enough of the far left anarchist literature now that I know that that's not the case, that I know that they do know what they're doing. They want to overthrow capitalism because they believe capitalism is the foundation of the US government. In regards to the gender stuff, it's not about mutilation, and it's definitely not about eugenics, because I've been to some of their conferences and they actually they think the far right is doing eugenics. They are very vehemently against it, but what they are trying to do is abolish all gender and abolish the gender binary because they think that upholds capitalism. And so I'm just trying to square what you're telling me. And it may be that we're using different terminology, and I certainly don't want to be accusatory or anything like that. I'm just curious about the disconnect between what I've seen and what I'm hearing from you so far.
Well, as far as the conservative talking points thing, it's even though I have plenty of gripes with them, proud Trump voter at this point, I may as well be labeled I was labeled a conservative, and now I have grown into conservatism because I've left Antifa 5+ years ago. And you're right. They do think that they're protecting the LGBT community, and they're fighting the gender binary, and they do want to get rid of capitalism, but it's just all so discoherent. And I think even part of my doing the podcast, I've been doing it the last year or two. I'm still having to answer a lot of these things for myself and get answers for myself because I was a bad Antifa member. I wasn't doing the things that I was supposed to be doing. They're telling me that I should be reading about communism, and I'm reading about the 09A and how they sacrifice children to Satan. Because I'm okay, if we're really going to read about Nazis, let's read about Nazis. But then that stuff always disturbed them. They didn't want to actually talk about Nazis. They wanted to talk about, who was most popular at the time saying a message that they didn't like. So it's there's what they say and what they do. Yeah, a lot of them want to dismantle capitalism. They'll go out and they'll scream it into the streets for about an hour or two, but then they're going home to do cocaine and play Overwatch. So it's I see the difference in what they say and what they do.
Sorry, but are those two things really disconnected? It's you can both want to dismantle capitalism and be engaging in direct action to dismantle capitalism, and you could also be a coke fiend and just want to go home and play video games or whatever they were doing. Yeah. Those two things can be true at the same time, right?
No, that's completely true. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
Oh no, sorry. You go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No. And again, I want to make it clear, like, I'm really not trying to make any accusations. It sounds like you maybe weren't as into like the literature and stuff like that. Where would you say that I am? Well, like, would you say that there are people who are really into that and maybe you just weren't hanging out with them or whatever?
I'd be hanging out with them. You got to keep in mind too, my drug addiction was so bad. I was drinking about 3 to 4 bottles of oldie malt liquor a day. I'm doing all the drugs. I'm smoking all the weed. Like, now that I've sobered up and I'm like getting past that as the years go on, now I can actually read a book again. So like how I told you I was getting those pamphlets back then, I'd get the pamphlets and I held on to them because I felt like I was being a champion, being one of the good guys. But then realistically, they'd just go into a corner and then I would just go back out in the streets and try to be the best Antifa member I could be because I thought I was smarter than them. I thought I was better than them. So I kind of wanted to have this more creative intellectual approach of like, well, let's think about this a little bit differently. And they just never really liked that. There'd be like mornings, I'd wake up in the morning, I'd turn on some communist music just because I like the sound of it. But I hadn't read the Communist Manifesto, you know, so I wasn't as devout in that sense. There's some people who are devout to, like, for lack of better terms, the more intellectual side of it. I liked the violence. I liked walking around with my machete and my brass knuckles and my knife. I liked looking scary. I liked being at the front, like feeling like a superhero, basically. So
okay,
like,
so you were really more the type to engage in like direct action and stuff like that?
I was more the type to run away more than anything, but I made myself look scary.
All right. Well, let's talk about that. What types of stuff did you engage in and do?
I mean, I've been specific on the channel. I don't hide any of this because I feel like former members need to come out and we need to say the things that we did. So, you know, at one point, a Chase Bank downtown Eugene is getting spray painted. I'm one of the people like holding up my arms. We're trying to block the camera. At one point, the Eugene Federal Courthouse is getting attacked and people are spray painting things and throwing stuff. You know, we're all throwing stones. I don't know if you've ever watched The Men Who Stare at Goats. I actually kind of wound up doing this. Everybody's throwing their rocks at the police. And I picked up 1 or 2 rocks and I just didn't have it in me really. So I kind of threw over so that I knew it would miss. But then after that, you know, we tore down construction sites trying to block out, create barricades in the road so the police couldn't come through. You know, I'm quite sure I like verbalized death threats on occasion, feeling ravenous towards the other side because it's almost like I was personality disordered at the time. Like there was a good side of me that wanted to talk to the other side. And then there's just this hateful, angry side of me to where when things got really heated, it's like this monster came out. So there's kind of a yin yang going on, if that makes sense.
So what types of things? So you're talking about like the direct actions that like you were participating in. Well, like how did you guys plan and organize for those like before you actually did them?
A lot of what I was saying, because I'm not a big social media guy. I had Facebook at the time and Instagram. So they would put out stuff on Facebook and Instagram. A lot of stuff would be word of mouth. I had, for example, I had a couple of neighbors that I would roll with on occasion, and they were like right next door. So every day we're waking up, we're smoking pot together, we're going through the news, we're talking about what's going on. Some of them would have connections here. Some of them would have connections here. One of them, a friend of mine, she had a lot of friends who were going to Portland, and she herself was involved in that. One of the people that she was rolling with was one of the people that tried to help start a fire in the Portland Federal Courthouse. So she would go to Portland all the time and then would come back and report to me. I think she was way higher up. I never made it to Portland because I'm a drug addict that couldn't afford it, thankfully, at the time. But and then, you know, I had another friend who was just more of like the queer gamer geek type. And then the other one who just kind of seemed to do it because it was cool. But then I had all these friends at the downtown Eugene bar that I was welcomed in their circle, but not a part of it because they look at me, they treated me like I was a straight man, even though I had a husband. So it's kind of like I was in, but I was out. I was one of the cool ones, they would tell me, until I started questioning things about what was going on with gender. Because, you know, it's one of the reasons I get so uppity and I call eugenics on what's happening with the trans issues. Like I've had so many people in my personal life from that time on who the gender madness has just gotten so horrible that it's just like I can't participate in this anymore. Like, what aren't you guys seeing this?
No, and I think that makes sense. I guess what I'm trying to get at, and maybe you don't remember, that's fine. But like, how like so are there any like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out, how do people learn how to be an Antifa? How do you go from someone that has never done a direct action before to knowing to go and block the cameras and do all those things and spray paint the buildings or throw the rocks or do whatever? Like, how is that all like coordinated and organized?
So I know there's meetings that I was never a part of that people go out and do, but for a lot of what I saw, just people with megaphones coaching it to you. as it's happening, people coming up to you. Like I would always go out in a black mask and I try to get in with certain crowds, but a lot of them were too paranoid to deal with me. They thought I was a Fed, but others, they would just run their mouth to me like we had known each other their entire lives. So they'll be like, yeah, you know, if they come, make sure you say this, don't do this, don't go down that road there. They're waiting for you over there. We hear there's going to be a militia over here. Don't go over there. And it's kind of what I tell people when they're doing this stuff is it's just like, you never even know if you're talking to a Fed. Like I never knew the people that I was talking to, but here they are giving me instructions and here I am acting on it.
Mm-hmm. So why did you do that then if you didn't know you were talking to a Fed?
Didn't consider it, didn't care. Like I said, it's a suicide cult. I was very suicidal. I wanted to die. If that meant that I went down fighting the police and fighting for the honor of my friends at the time and coming out looking like a champion or a hero, that was more important to me than a lot of the logic from time to time. Mm-hmm. You know, I like for Black Bloc, I wanted to join Black Bloc. I tried to approach them numerous times. They were too paranoid for me, thankfully. But it's like, I was just trying to find my place of purpose. Like, where do I belong in all of this? Mm-hmm. And there's kind of ultimately I don't belong anywhere.
So you tried to join Black Bloc, but they wouldn't let you do it. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, and I was asking somebody who's involved in Black Bloc recently. I actually interviewed him on my channel. He's the first former Antifa member that I've gotten to interview, and I'm hoping to interview a lot more. But he thinks that Black Bloc changed in his time and that it used to be a little more anarchistic. It used to have more of it just used to be a group of friends, group of homies getting together, plotting things out, and they were a little more welcoming to outsiders. But in his time of leaving, he realized that there was some sort of infiltration that seemed to have taken place and that a more militant wing of people had come in. I think by the time that I was getting around to that, whatever these more militant Marxist types were, they had already taken hold. And I think that that's more of like a club of people that hang out in off time, you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So how did, I mean, like, I guess, what did you do to try to get into Black Bloc and like what happened?
Talked to them, showed up with supplies. Sometimes I come up with like milk and water and stuff. I've been turned down for milk and water before because they're like, we don't know what's in that. Or just trying to go have a conversation. Hey, you know, I know you guys aren't really going to let me come and ride with you guys, but do you need extra security? Do you guys need me to walk around the park or whatever to like keep an extra lookout for you? And then it's just always like a dismissal, like go away. And then they go talk to their buddy and they're all looking over their shoulders at me like I'm the problem. And I'm just like, okay.
All right. All right. So I guess, I guess let me ask you this, like, what is your opinion about what's going on outside in like the ICE facilities right now? How do you see what's going on compared to like your experiences with the far left?
I think it's strategic placement. So kind of how I told you, we had a millionaire funder in downtown Eugene who I haven't named publicly. I'm trying to get all the papers together and trying to get some more evidence together. I got a private investigator on it because I want to go to the feds with this so it's not just hearsay. Mm-hmm. But this person, all the money in the world, promised us all bail, was working in coordination with a lot of other downtown business owners. And if you look in downtown Eugene, a lot of these businesses, they'll be along Broadway, which is essentially West 9th. You go about a block or two down there, there's the police station, there's the courthouse, there's the federal courthouse, there's all of those buildings, right? And then in Portland, suddenly you have Antifa and they're going into storage buildings literally right across the street. My concern with what we're seeing in this aspect is as the police were defunded, as they were crippled, as they weren't allowed to do anything. Like we had people getting murdered, raped, stalked, everything in Oregon. You couldn't get a cop for anything. I think what they've been doing is they've been moving their stuff closer and closer and closer and closer under the guise of chaos. And I think there's a strategic element to it. I don't think it's a coincidence that they're now popping up across the street from the ICE facility. Like the camp's one thing, but storage buildings, you know, if there's local businesses willing to harbor supplies, masks, anything like that, like it just kind of made me wonder if they're crawling closer for the ultimate moment.
So how do you think they're planning that and coordinating that?
That's still one I'm trying to figure out because it's just so freaking convoluted. But I think a lot of what's realistically happening, and this is from some investigations I did on the channel, I met another former Antifa member back when I was doing an undercover job because I worked at an election polling firm a couple of times in my life, and they were doing the Donald Trump, Kamala Harris polls, and it's an Antifa run business. So I was like, okay, well, let me go in, let me get some information, yada, yada, yada. And I met this guy who was a part of Antifa and he had left. And he was essentially in fear for his life. And, you know, he was trying to tell me we need to start an anti-Antifa coalition. He wanted to call it the Pride Panthers, all of this. But this was his role essentially getting into Antifa. He was a drug mule. And he was a drug mule for different criminal organizations that were operating in Portland. He was down to get down with Antifa because he had gripes with white supremacy. He had all these things in his background that drove him to think like that was the answer. And then he gave it a few weeks or a few months, and he decided to drop out because he's like, this is stupid. His bosses kept him embedded because he still had to make the money. So from what he told me, these were there's various different cartels in play in Oregon. And the only one I'm going to speak for sure on is he said that there was Chinese cartels essentially in control of downtown Portland. And that his bosses essentially, he operated with them. Now, he told me he was drug trafficking in all 50 states, all across the United States, like taking drugs on and off of airplanes type shit.
Okay.
I think that the people that are, so this is basically the way he explained it to me. I'm trying to super condense it because anytime I tell the story, it becomes a lot.
Totally.
This is what he described the protest to me. You have a protest here. You have all your cops. You have all your media. You have all your attention. It's all right here. The rest of the city, for the most part, is dark. So what he told me, these people are sending in agents into the protest groups, into different organizations. They're sending up drones. They have people around town. And essentially, whenever the riots and the protests are popping off, that's when they're doing drug trade, weapon trade, and potentially even human smuggling. So a lot of the chaos, I believe, it's not necessarily coordinated by Antifa so much as people at the top who are literally trying to use the situation for their own personal benefit to create chaos and destabilization so they can move their pieces around the chessboard.
I guess I'm rather confused, and I understand why I mean, I don't know. I don't know if any of that's happening, and I don't have evidence either way. So I'm like,
it's a crazy one to believe. I get it.
Well, no, it's fine. But I guess where I'm confused is that I have heard Antifa members on like in person and also online repeatedly denounce China and denounce like Maoism and the CCP and all that because they think it's all capitalist. And I guess I have a hard time believing that they would be working in concert with that. I certainly could be wrong. I'd be open to evidence. But the other thing I want to say is like, so with Portland specifically, and I was like in Portland on the ground for several days. I mean, I don't know that I think that they're trying to get the police distracted and that they're doing stuff when the police are distracted. And the reason that I say that is the police were very rarely there in front of the ICE facility. Like they were there, maybe they would show up every once in a while, but then they would leave. And there were actually like long stretches of time at night where the police just wouldn't even come at all. And so I don't know if I don't know if that would have been an effective tactic in that case based on what I saw personally. And again, I'm not dismissing the idea. I'd totally be open to evidence, but I guess that's kind of like my feedback on that is I'm not quite sure that that's like what's going on and how they're doing it.
That's completely fair. And it's still something, it's just like, could be untrue. I certainly believe it, but I don't think that it's necessarily Antifa working in coordination with the CCP. Antifa's a cult. It's a terrorist organization, but it's a cult.
Yeah.
Somebody is puppet stringing the cult from the top, and I don't think they necessarily need to know about it. I think the cartels are bringing drugs into Antifa. I think that a lot of different organizations are too. And I think the thing with Oregon is there's such strong laws against decriminalization. These kids are getting all the drugs under the sun, but nobody ever questions where they're coming from.
I guess I'm saying, I guess I'm asking, like, why do you say it's being puppeteered by a cult? Like by someone at the top? I do agree with you that Antifa is a cult. We're on the same page there, but like, where does the whole idea of it being puppeteered come in? And what makes you think that?
I just think it makes the most sense. It's too much of what I said off this guy. So bear in mind, this is the state this guy was in. Broken, destroyed. Like he had a friend executed in front of him over this, somebody that he was slinging dope with. You know, when I met him, he's like breaking down, telling me like the story of how his friend got shot in the head and he's holding his body there. And this dude, he was borderline about to commit suicide. It felt like I was really having to keep him off the edge, and he's just spilling everything to me. And one day he actually almost killed an active Antifa member with his bare hands. I get a phone call saying, "Hey, I think I just murdered somebody." And from there, he went and he did a podcast with me, but none of the audio ever came out. So there was no audio, just a recording of us talking. And he just started listing names and locations and all the shit where I was just like, dude, we can't, what the hell are you doing? Like he was basically saying, come kill me.
Okay.
And this is Sorry, I tend to get distracted. I'm going off too much on that.
That's okay.
Memory. But no, I don't think Antifa is organized enough to pull off what it hopes to do. But we do have, different nations like China, like this new axis that seems to be forming, that they do seem to be working towards destabilization of the United States of America. And I feel like it's kind of what we do in other countries. It just kind of seems to be the move now. You put your assets in, and then all of a sudden you activate them, you're ready to go. I mean, Xi Jinping comes to California, suddenly the homeless are off the fucking streets, Eugene, that's the home of Nike. They're all wearing Nike on their feet, but they never question the slave labor behind it. So it's just like, for me, they can say fuck the CCP and they can say fuck China all day, but at the end of the day, they're somebody's bitches. That's really what.
But who? Like who? Because I'm gonna be blunt. I don't buy the CCP stuff. I don't buy it like at all in any way.
Fair.
And I would always be open to looking at evidence. If there's evidence and I see it and it says I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, and I'm more than happy to admit when I'm wrong. When there's actually evidence, but I guess I personally haven't seen evidence of there being some big puppeteer, and I guess I'm just wondering, we can't just say because I think this is happening or because I have a feeling this is happening, right? We actually have to we have to have evidence of these things, and if that really did exist, I would have to think that there would be something that we could look at. I mean, do you know of anything that we could look at?
I don't. Like I said, a lot of this, I'm still investigating this for myself. But if we want to look at it at a national level, I mean, a lot of what we can look at realistically is the Democratic Party. They hate the Democratic Party. They hate Biden. They hate Kamala. But still, the Democratic Party is willing to come in and fuel the fire and pretend to be their friends, even though they know they're damn well they're not. And I think it's a group of people that a lot of people want control of, quite frankly.
What do you think the Democratic Party is doing to help Antifa?
Just fucking lying their ass off. I mean, I came out to speak out during the Biden administration because I'm just like, okay, they're still here. They're still causing problems. Why aren't you saying anything about this? Well, it's the MAGA terrorist and it's the Trump supporters and January 6th, January 6th, January 6th. And I'm like, okay, May 29th, May 29th, May 29th, May 29th. There's a constant deflection of any time we start to talk about the far left when it comes to the Democratic Party. Well, now we have to talk about Trump. And I think the whole time that they've been doing that, essentially they've been playing cover for Antifa, because when guys like me used to hear that, we heard that we were doing the right thing. When people like Jimmy Kimmel or Stephen Colbert, or let's use some online people like Kyle Klinsky. I used to wake up every morning and watch Kyle Klinsky. Why? Because he gave us cover. He never called us out on our nonsense. He'd say all the things we liked. Antifa is just an idea. It's not an organization. And with Antifa, you're keeping yourself in an echo chamber. So if those are the people constantly telling you that you're doing the right thing or they're playing cover for you, those are the voices that you're going to lean into constantly. And the Democratic Party knows that.
Yeah, I guess I would just say, I mean, I'll play devil's advocate here. I would say the Trump administration is doing exactly the same thing, where the Trump administration is pretending to care about the problem, but then they are constantly deflecting and scapegoating and saying, well, it's the Democrats that did this. And the Trump administration hasn't done anything about Antifa. They haven't arrested anyone. They aren't treating them as though they're terrorists. There's nothing that's really changed since Trump issued the executive order. So I guess I'm having a hard time understanding how what the Democratic Party is doing is really any different than what the Trump administration is doing, since they haven't done anything to stop Antifa either.
Oh, it's not. And they haven't been arresting them. And, also, like I said, I was listening to some of your videos before we started this because I wasn't too familiar with your content. Yeah. Kind of like what you're saying with the George Soros thing. The Trump administration is like, Soros. And it's like, okay, yeah, Soros money paid for our DAs and probably a couple other things. I never got a check from Soros. My buddies never got a check from Soros. These business, it's like they hone in on one key component that has the big flash word, and then they kind of go into that. And I'm a fuck Soros guy. Like, let's get him. But also, like, they're making it overly simplistic. And, I kind of wonder what your thoughts are about this, because I was actually saying this like a day or two before the label of domestic terrorist dropped. I was personally, I was wanting to go to DC and write Donald Trump a letter. I thought that they should have been labeled a gang, because I knew the second they got labeled a domestic terror organization, they were going to lean super, super, super hard into that. Because the first time that Trump ever said that, back in his first administration, that he was touting that line that I said, if you're going to be a terrorist, if they're going to call you a terrorist, be the best damn terrorist you can be. So what I saw almost immediately after that label is just everything got infinitely worse. But it's like you're saying, as everything got infinitely worse, where's the accountability? Why do I turn on YouTube every day and there's more Antifa members punching ICE agents in the face, doing this. It's, yeah, I got a lot of beef with the Trump administration right now on that. Like,
cool.
I'm a Trump voter, but like, yeah, I see the problem, and it's making the far right turn into, like, I have people who are far right on my comment section right now. They're just as fucking stupid as Antifa.
Oh, well, you might be talking to one of those far right fascists, so I wouldn't be so quick to dismiss it there. But I want to go back to where we agree on before we get to where we disagree on, because I do definitely I think we found agreement over the fecklessness of the Trump administration. I have did you ever read Crime Think when you were in Antifa?
Mm-mm.
So Crime Think is like the main publishing arm of Antifa. And right after Trump released the executive order declaring them a terrorist organization, there was a big feature on Crime Think basically saying exactly what you just said, which is basically, we need to get out and do more direct action. We need more solidarity. They were trying to make sure that people were engaging in the organization, and they were trying to make sure that people essentially weren't going to rat them out or turn them in or whatever. So they were trying to do. They were basically saying we need to do more now. This is like our time to amp that up. So I definitely think that you're right on the money with that. Maybe we should back up though. I guess maybe one of the confusing points that I'm having right now is what is your definition of Antifa? When you say Antifa, what do you mean by that? Because sorry, I'm gonna expand a little bit more before I let you answer, if that's okay. Because you made the point that maybe the Trump administration should have designated them as a gang. I think it's an interesting idea. I hadn't actually thought about that, but I think the biggest problem that I had with the Trump executive order, and I said this before he issued it when there were just rumors, and I said it afterwards too, which is that the Trump administration does not know how to define Antifa, and that's really the problem. Because Antifa for me is not I actually do Antifa is like an idea. It's an ideology. It's a subculture, as you said. It's not one organization. It's thousands of small little organizations, and the vast majority of those organizations do not have Antifa in the title. And so you can't just put out a memo and say Antifa is a terrorist organization. What the fuck does that even mean? If you don't know who the organizations are and you don't know the names of the organizations, you can't classify everyone that you don't like on the left as part of the same group, because there are revolutionary communists that want to overthrow the government that are not Antifa. There are all sorts of different types of groups. And I thought that was a point where the Trump administration really dropped the ball. I think if they had defined Antifa around certain types of behaviors in terms of them dressing up in black bloc, them using umbrellas, them, doing certain types of graffiti, them engaging in certain types of direct actions and trying to cover their tracks and their DNA, them engaging in surveillance culture. You could have put together a list of certain behaviors that are very common among the Antifa members that are causing the problems. The problem is the Trump administration didn't do that, which is why they can't really arrest anyone for being an Antifa, because there's no definition around what that means. So that's just to answer your question that you had about the executive order. But I want to go back to you, and I want can we maybe try to bring some definition around what it means to be an Antifa?
Yeah, definitely anti-capitalist. They see themselves as a collective. Like you said, they got their colors and their outfits and all that. But, kind of how I felt like the executive order should have been handled. Acts of violence, threats, doxing, stuff like that. I feel like once you cross that threshold, that's when it gets into domestic territory. But even for me, it's even a guy like me gets confused. I was listening to what you were saying about Andy No yesterday and on the whole Trantifa thing. I've been saying Trantifa because in my head, when I see someone who's trans and they're an Antifa, my head automatically goes to, you're there for trans rights, you're Trantifa. But you had a very good point. There is no actual Trantifa. But simultaneously on the left, at the opinion firm that I worked at where we did all the polls and whatnot, it was Antifa run, and they would have Trantifa flags around. So it's it's not an organization, but then the left hears it and then they lean into it, which would create further confusion.
What does a Trantifa flag look like?
Just a non-binary flag on the Antifa flags with the two flags right there. It's just that, but it's like a non-binary trans flag.
So with the militant queer Marxist arm of the left, they actually do have very specific symbology. It's it's pink and black. It's the upside down pink triangle. Sometimes the pink triangle is right side up. It really just depends on what era it was coming from. So I wouldn't say that I think one of the things that's going on right now is and this is very common. So I don't mean to I'm not trying to make you feel bad or anything, but I think there's some conflation of the gender stuff with like queer Marxist activism, where I do classify these things as different things. Now, both problematic. I'm not dismissing what's happening to kids in schools. I'm not dismissing, the whole like the problems I see with trans ideology, of which I see many. But I do distinguish between trans and queer, where I think trans is about I think is about mental illness. I think most of the people who are doing this, it's mental illness and pushing it on kids. Hang on, sorry. Sorry. I've been sick, so I'm coughing now.
Oh, you're good.
Apologies for that. I think that like queer ideology is different than trans, because queer ideology is about transcending the gender binary. It's about getting rid of gender altogether, whereas trans is about transitioning from man to woman or woman to man. And both of them I think are harmful to like force onto kids in schools. But when I look at the evolution of queer Marxism, the emphasis is always on the abolition of the gender binary, the abolition of gender entirely, whereas people who are doing kind of like trans activism are doing something a little bit different. And so when I'm referring to like things like what Andy's trying to call Trantifa, but Trantifa is not like a real thing, I'm talking about things like the bashback movement that was active in the 2000s and the early 2010s, and that they're trying to reactivate now. I mean, we've seen bashback actually show up at multiple conservative events in the last year. They showed up at a Turning Point USA event with a big sign that said bashback with a giant pink triangle on it. They showed up at a walkaway event in West Hollywood, California with a sign that says queers bash back, again with a giant ass pink triangle on it. And so that's kind of the movement I'm talking about specifically, which is I think different than some of the trans and gender ideology stuff going on. Does that make sense?
No, completely. Absolutely. It's, because this queer Marxist stuff, it just comes in and hijacks it. You got people like Buck Angel who'll be like, yeah, I'm a biological woman. I have a mental disorder. Mm-hmm. I did this to alleviate some of the pain I was feeling. And for me, I'm just like, that's great. I respect the hell out of that. And then you have everything else that you just described, which it's really transcending gender. And we're getting more into transhumanist territory. It's getting just beyond creepy, especially with the kids. You got itself, God self, demon self. But yeah, no, I definitely see the nuance in that. Absolutely.
Totally. So I want to go back to the definition of Antifa. So if we were to advise the Trump administration on, here is how you need to define Antifa if you are actually going to be effective in solving this problem, what do you think that would be?
Is it terrible to say after 2 years of talking out and even all my involvement, even I have trouble defining it?
Well, that's the truth. I mean, listen, I've been covering the far left for a long time, and I don't think I really got into the swing of things until the second or third year. So that might be a common attribute of, listen, I think you're still figuring it out. I'm going to be honest. I think you're still figuring it out. And coming from a place where I started learning about this stuff rather accidentally, there's a lot of figuring out to do. And so I think that where you probably are at might be like a rather natural thing, just because it is a complex problem.
Yeah, and that's a lot of the reason I want to podcast too, because people in my everyday life, people I work with, people in my family, no one talks about Antifa. No one wants to talk about the fire and the flames. I've never actually had people to talk about until I started doing this podcast, and it's because I couldn't let the obsessions go away. But totally. It's you could tell this is why they make it so damn confusing, so that they can just dismiss it and be like, see, if you can't define it, if you can't figure us out, and it's like, but it's all part of the tactics, Yeah. And that's one of the reasons I felt like if it were a gang, like growing up, I knew fake Bloods and Crips. And then there's people, who are a little older, and it's like, no, that if you were to go look in their life, they're probably actual gangsters. But then you have the younger kids that are just, they're putting on the colors and they're pretending and they're listening to the music. Those kids would be a lot different than those adults because they're not actually in that world. They're pretending to be in that world. So I think that does create part of the problem, is how do you differentiate? Because now I'm seeing a bunch of old MSNBC white ladies online, and they're screaming and they're sounding just as ravenous as anybody in Antifa. And they're saying like the same types of things. So it's like, we can't go basing off what people say anymore, because like I said, now that it's a culture, it's because it's so confusing and it's risen to the surface. I think a lot of innocent people are going to get locked up for it because it's so.
Can you give me an example of what you've heard on MSNBC that sounds like Antifa?
Not on MSNBC, but like just the comments. You see the old lady comments, and it's like you get all your facts from like mainstream media, and it's just I don't know, just the viciousness and the dismissiveness, and just, well, we're against fascists, so why wouldn't we support them? And just,
What do you think they mean when they said they are against fascism?
Antifa?
Yeah.
By the time I left, I realized it meant we're against America. It's white people, it's Christians, it's straight people, it's people with guns, it's people driving around in a Ford truck with an American flag off their back, it's people with American flag tattooed on their arm. That was a true fascist in their eyes, I think.
Ty, can I lay my cards on the table? I think you're a nice guy, and I think that you're doing your best, and I think you're trying to figure it out. I think I'm hearing a lot of conservative talking points from you, and I think you're
conservative now.
Well, yeah, but the problem is that most conservatives don't know what the fuck they're talking about when it comes to Antifa, and so I think part of the challenge is like, you know, you had this direct experience with these far left activists, and what I'm hearing, I've heard on conservative media repeatedly, and it's just not lining up for me with what I've experienced when I've been in far left spaces, and I've been in far left spaces like undercover multiple times at this point. It's just not aligning up with what I've seen directly in person. And so like
what you're saying too, I feel like you're going to the bookstores, you're going to the colleges.
Yeah.
I'm going to the crack den. I'm going to the parties. I'm going, and that's where a lot of the core culture of Antifa comes from. It's hanging out at people's houses. It's smoking pot in their backyard. It's frying with them out in the woods. Like, there's the academic side that you are engaged in, but then there's also just the street level side of what happens when you go home. That's where it comes from.
Well, I guess the problem though is so if I asked Antifa in Portland how they define fascist, I know exactly how they define fascist because there were 2 Antifa members in Black Bloc who came up to me when I was in Portland and they said, "You're a fascist." And I said, "Well, yeah, but like, why do you think that? Like, what do you think you know about me?" And they said, "You have fascist in your Twitter profile." And I said, "The fuck I don't. Like, I absolutely do not have fascist in my Twitter profile. So what do you think you know about me?" And they said, "Oh, that's right. You have anti-communist in your Twitter profile, and that's why you're a fascist, because you're an anti-communist." And so that's like actually a pretty common thing that I've heard from like just far left different subcultures online is when they say fascist, what they mean is anyone who is to the right of Antifa. They mean anyone that's not a communist. And so like, and that's something that like I've heard online, but then I also experienced directly in person by someone in Black Bloc saying it to me directly. And so I guess so do I hang out in their intellectual spaces? Well, of course, because I want to know what ideas are propagating in their ecosystem. But I also read anarchist news. I also read Crime Think. I've gone to their protests. I've gone to their, you know, organizing meetings and stuff like that. And so again, like, I'm hearing more from you, like conservative talking points rather than things that I've seen that line up in those spaces. And I'm just trying to assess, like, where is the disconnect coming from?
Well, I mean, in terms of that, like, you're talking about, they're saying like, oh, you're anti-communist, therefore you're fascist. I'm looking more at the psychological. They're not thinking everything I said is what makes you a fascist. But if you really get to know these people, it's the symbols, it's the colors, it's the American flag. Those are really the things at the end of the day that social media, that the government, all these things have propagated them to believe are the fascist. Like, when I talk about Antifa, I don't talk so much about what they're saying out loud. I'm talking more like what they're thinking in their head, because I was that guy and I've hung out with these guys a lot. And I'm very much interested in the psychological, because there's what they present and what they say, and then there's what actually lies down deep. Like, a lot of these people, I've had to keep them from committing suicide on multiple occasions, killing people on multiple occasions, hurting people on multiple occasions. And there's what they scream in the streets and what they scream in their everyday conversations. But when you get them crying, talking about their childhood, talking about their past, talking about what's really fucking them up in life, it's not really any of that. All of that is just what they're pointing to so that they can externalize the pain and not have to look inward at themselves.
Well, I mean, I think that again, I think that this might be a reflection of your individual experiences. And I'm not, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not entirely convinced that you were involved with like Antifa. I think you may have been involved with something. I'm not questioning anything that you're saying in terms of like your experience, but I'm not entirely convinced you were involved in Antifa. And I want to bring up one point specifically, and I want to kind of get your reaction to it. And I have to do this because I was asked to do this by a member of my community when he found out I was having you on. So I'm going to go back up to your YouTube channel right here. And I just want to scroll down a little ways. And I want to talk to you about this video right here, the one that says "You got had, fake ex-Antifa whistleblower speaks out." And I want to show you this one too, where you're also talking about the same whistleblower. Now, the problem is that the person that was on Jesse Kelly, that's the former Antifa, he's a member of my community, and I've actually talked to him on multiple occasions, and I was the one that connected him with Jesse Kelly's producer. And so
I want to know about this. Like,
well, yeah.
But
this is what I'm saying is, like, I know for absolute certainty that he is a former member of Antifa. I also know for absolute certainty that these two people, because these are two different people that you have on the thumbnail here. This was a talking point that was circulating on social media that these were the same person. They're not the same person at all. And so I say this because obviously the very real ex-Antifa member that is in my community, like, I know he's real and other people in the community know he's real, but you did a couple videos about how he was fake.
Like, if that's the case, that's actually kind of neat, because I've been wondering about this guy the whole time, because I saw the pictures and the video come out and I was just like, what the fuck is Fox News doing? So if there's credibility that this guy's real, because the whole time he's speaking out, I'm like, he's saying the right things. Holy shit, he knows. He's saying everything right. And then it was like somebody like stabbed me in the heart the next day when I saw that, because I was like, come on. Because what I've been trying to do with my channel, I just want former Antifa members to speak out. It don't matter if you're a little minnow like me, if you're some sort of leader, black bloc. I'm just trying to create a space to where former members can come to run their mouth, because at that point, if enough people get together, then it's harder to fight back against. Just like the detransitioners. People were like, they're, they don't exist. They're not this. They're not real. They're fascist. And then when a bunch of them came out, people shut the fuck up. So I've been trying to do that with ex-Antifa. So if that guy's real and he's like legitimate, then dude, if you're listening to this, I owe you a fucking apology.
Well, I guess, hey, and I really do appreciate that. And I'm sure he's going to appreciate that as well. But I guess my question is, like, what was it about it that made you think that he was fake?
I think just the video, it almost sounded like the guy in the other video. If it's a separate guy, I'll go with that, because I'm not dismissing your calling me a liar here. The voices sounded so similar. The line seemed so similar. Like, there's instances where the feds will have a bunch of like seemingly fake white supremacists pile out of the back of the U-Haul van, and they're all wearing their white shirts and their gaiters. After seeing that other video, that's what that guy registered as to me. And that's honestly what I thought. And I saw it everywhere. Because at first I was like, no, they're just mad that Gabriel Nadales went on or whatever. And then I clicked on it and I was just like, what the hell? Because, like, again, I wanted that to be real. So if that's real, and then it's real. That's very interesting.
Yeah, well, it's definitely 100% real, but I wondered if you had any substantive concerns with what he said, because again, it seems to me like you have some experience, and I'm not even questioning that you may have been around like far left subcultures. I'm just questioning, was there some disagreement where you were like, he said that thing and that doesn't ring true for me?
No, everything he said was right. It was just the other video. I was just like, how are you going to be in the cartels and Antifa? I'm sitting here talking about how I believe the two are connected, but even I was just like, there's no possible way that this guy was both. But no, as far as everything he said, that's what got me wondering even more. I was just like, does that mean they're having people going in and, watching Antifa, studying Antifa just so they can come on TV and say the perfect thing? Nothing he said was wrong to me.
Cool. All right. Fair enough. So I guess I'm still wondering though, like, so, I mean, what do you mean when you say you were a former Antifa member? Because, and I understand that it might be tough to put definition around like Antifa as a group, but like you say you're a former Antifa, you say you want to talk to former Antifa, like, what does that actually mean? And if you need to just like brainstorm like that's totally fine. I'm not expecting like perfect answer or anything.
No. And honestly, I appreciate the grilling today, because I feel like I've never gotten grilled before, especially.
I don't mean it to feel like a grilling. I'm just, I have questions, okay?
There's people in the comments that are like, he's a plant. He's never been a part of this. So it's like,
don't read the comments. Don't worry about the comments. People say all sorts of crazy shit about me.
I have to stop that.
You should see some of the things people say about me. Like, welcome to the internet, bro. Like, it's a great time. Don't read the comments. Just like we're just having a chat here.
Yeah, no stress. No, but like for me, they accepted anybody into the ranks. They're like, if you come, you're dressed in black, you bring your weapons, you bring your flag, you're buying us milk, you're bringing us water, you're bringing us pizza, you're bringing us snacks. I'm tagging up the neighborhood, ACAB 1312. Like, I'm listening to all this like fuck Nazi communist music, all this nasty shit, fuck the police. And as far as I'm concerned, if I'm acting, behaving, and dressing that way, and you've embraced me as one of your own, then when I come out and speak about it years and years later, you don't get to say I wasn't one of you at that point. Maybe I didn't get in as deep as the others, and thank God for that. But I did a lot, and I saw a lot, and I met a lot of people, and I've seen things that will completely scar me. So yeah, I wasn't as big as someone like Chandler or a lot of these black bloc types, but I wore the flag. I knew the lingo. I had the colors. I had my friends. We all called each other Antifa every fucking day, day in and day out. This is what we were fighting for. This is the group that we're going to hedge all our bets on. So for me, I was Antifa, and I declared it. And that declaration, telling people that, it brought me closer to other people. I got to see more. I got to be invited into certain spaces that I wouldn't have been in otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
So if they considered me to have been one of them back then as far as I'm concerned, that title's never left. And I'm going to throw that title back in their faces.
All right. I guess, like, so how do you identify when someone is former Antifa then? Like, if someone comes to you and says, I am former Antifa, like, how do you know that that's real, or like what criteria do you put around it to say, yes, this person is real versus yes, this person is fake? Because listen, man, on the internet, and I've seen this over and over again, you have a lot of people making a lot of claims that are not real. Like, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, I got internet famous in 2020 when I was the knitting Democrat that left the left. And that was a real thing for me. I actually was a Democrat. I was never far left, but I was a Democrat for 20 years. And I did have a process of waking up where I realized my side has gone crazy. And I wrote an article on the internet, and it accidentally went viral and got the attention of a lot of people. And so I was the knitting Democrat that left the left. When I had that experience, there were also all sorts of other people, and this was during an election year, so there was a lot of like eyes on the situation. And one of the things that the Republican Party loves more than any other thing is someone who's left the left. They will like bend over backwards for you. They will love bomb you. They will bring you on every single show if you say you left the left. We see this happen literally every single presidential election cycle, where there's always a group of people that I left the left because I think the Democrats are crazy. Most of them are lying. Most of them were never actually on the left. And many of them, and I've just learned this from experience over the years, actually were like never involved at all. And they're just saying that they were because it is a very, very easy way to get famous on the internet. And so like, I think that people have to have, and I'm telling you this story because I didn't know that at the time. I had like, it took me years to figure this out. But like, I think that people have to have discernment that when it comes to like content on the internet, people will say almost anything to be famous. People will do almost anything to be famous. And so I think that people who are putting themselves out there, and I think that you are on a genuine search for truth, and I think you're figuring it out, but I think that you are going to end up encountering people who say they were former Antifa that really have no fucking idea. So how do you discern between like what's real and what's fake? And maybe you're still figuring it out, and maybe that's totally fine.
Honestly, yeah, because after 2 years of doing this, like I said, the first former Antifa member that I met in person, what taught me it was real for him was his bloodlust, his hatred for Antifa, how much they hurt him and how much he wanted to hurt them back. That was something you couldn't fake.
Well, tell me more about that. That sounds interesting.
They fucked him up. So, I told you I got a call from him that he said he thought he murdered somebody.
Mm-hmm.
So he apparently beat up an active Antifa member with his fist, bloody to a pulp, downtown Eugene. And from what he told me, what set him over the edge was essentially this person was bragging about molesting a 14-year-old. And this just sent him off the edge. Now, I guess he knew this guy, and he had slept with this guy's mother. So what the response to this guy was when he was like, what the fuck are you saying about this 14-year-old girl? Is he's like, well, you're a granny chaser. What makes what I do not so different?
Okay.
That triggered the fuck out of him because of, there's other members in Antifa he had issues with who they did wind up being pedophiles. So there was that was a very severe trigger for him. And just the hatred and the anger that I heard from him, you couldn't bullshit that. Brother Scrub, he's a guy, that's his anonymous name on my channel. He's the first ex-Antifa member that I've interviewed, and it's like gone up and it's there. Talking with that dude, he's still an anarchist at heart. He seems to skew. If you talk to him, he's a little more of a constitutionalist, but he claims to be an anarchist. And you listen to his story and it's like, dude, you're like half the guys that I knew out there. So there's something that can't be faked. The only other couple of people who were in Antifa I've talked to were from the UK, and it was just a couple of emails, and they wouldn't even talk to me because they were so paranoid. So to honestly answer that, I'm still going to have to figure out that type of discernment because, like I said, I want to be the guy who's able to interview ex-Antifa members. Come on, tell your story, educate me, educate the public. Let's get a little more knowledge out there. But I haven't had much experience with these people because these people are terrified. They're either guilty or they're terrified, and that makes finding them extremely difficult. And when you do find them, I said, most of the time you can't get them to talk, but there's still that regret and that fear and the I wish I could speak, especially with the UK. It's just like, I can imagine you'd probably be arrested for speaking out against this.
Yeah.
So it's like,
the UK is a totally different beast than the US. And the UK, and I would put France in this category as well. I would put Australia and New Zealand in this category. I would even put Canada in this category to a certain extent. They are way worse off right now than the United States. They're way farther along on like their de-evolution. And I think that the far left in those countries is more powerful and more organized and, quite frankly, more violent than they are here. And I think it's something that we can look to as like, you know, like here's what's coming to us if we don't actually get this problem under control.
Exactly. Which is why I think more former members need to speak out, because there wasn't nobody speaking out over there. You know what really brings down a cult? People who were a part of the cult to some degree. It's like, you know, nobody remembers half of the names of the people who went and investigated Scientologists, but we all remember Leah Remy, right? Like the people who escaped the cult, those are the biggest sledgehammers to the movement that we can possibly get. So it's like, kind of like you point out, there's a lot of things I'm uneducated on this issue, and I spent 2 years in it. And that means, like, I'm so obsessed with this time, I want to learn more about it. But that means I need to find more people like me. But I feel like people like me are scared to step out because maybe they think there's no forgiveness, there's no love on the other side. You know, like you said, there's a lot of love bombing when you say I've left the left and all that. But at the same time, like, I've also never felt this much love in my entire life. Like, people want to hear that people are willing to walk away from this, no matter what they're involved with. Small, medium-sized, big. People just want to hear, I'm sorry, I was wrong. What can we do to fix this moving forward? And those are the three things that I've like find myself most concerned with, is because I don't want to end up like the UK. What I see is we're going to do the same thing as the UK. All Antifa over there are just like, yeah, we're going to create this Unitarian society and we're going to have all these Muslims come in. And the Muslims are like, the fuck we are. You know, we can't afford to do that here. Like,
well, you know, I think the idea of like interviewing former Antifa and making that information available is very noble. I think that it is, you're absolutely right. It's very hard to find former Antifa members because like, I mean, I have actually interviewed like multiple communists on my channel. I cannot find any former Antifa that are really like willing to talk to me, or it's very, very difficult as like, as you said. And so it's something that I've kind of like put it on the back burner and like, okay, well, if it happens, it happens. Like I said, I do have people in the chat at least that I know are former Antifa that maybe I've talked to in private that are able to like confirm some things. And so that's all fine, well and good. So I think what you're doing is very noble. I think, can I give you some totally unsolicited feedback about what you're walking into?
Absolutely.
You have to be real careful about buying into the love bombing from the conservatives, and you've got to be really careful about what you're listening to on conservative media, because you're going to find, and again, I say this from experience because I went down a very similar path that you did. Now, again, I wasn't far left, but I was on the left, and I did have like that coming out moment, and I did get the love bombing, and I did get all that stuff. So I know exactly how great it is, and you're right, it's fucking awesome when everyone's telling you nice things all the time, like, and you're getting all this positive feedback, and, you know, it may be happening at the same time that you're losing friends and family who are still leftists and stuff like that. It's fucking awesome. It feels really good. But I think what I have found out, because I've been doing this for almost 6 years now, is that the conservatives have just as many problems as the left does. Their mindset in many ways, this is not all of them, but some of them, is just as cultish as the left. And they are very prone to creating bullshit narratives and then cherry picking evidence that backs up their narrative while ignoring evidence that does not back up their narrative. And I think in many respects, the people that I see that consume a lot of like right-leaning media, they tend to be pretty unhinged from reality in terms of like what the left is actually doing, what the left believes, all that stuff. And that's why I harp so much on my channel. And you're more than welcome. If you want to help like figuring this stuff out, I've got a whole community of people that will help you figure this out. And I know that we'd be more than happy to do that, because the only thing that we look at on this channel is primary source evidence directly from the left itself. And so we're going just directly to the source. We aren't having anyone filter it for us. We aren't taking anyone else's opinion. And so I think that if I were you, I would start like getting in the habit of, don't listen to the commentators and pundits, because every single one of them is saying something that they're getting paid to say, and they will be committed to that narrative because they're getting paid to say it. Just go right to the evidence, and the evidence just doesn't lie.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate that, especially what you said about the love bombing and the cult-like thinking, because, I mean, everything you just kind of described, that's what Antifa did. Oh, you're running away from the conservatives? Oh, you're running away from bigotry and hatred? Oh, we love you. Come here. So, it's like, I could see it happening on both sides. So I really appreciate that bit of advice.
Yeah. And they tried to do it to me too in Portland, because I don't know if you know this, but I was assaulted by 2 MAGA people in Portland because I was wearing black. And so they assumed that I was Antifa. And so they saw fit to like start screaming at me and then assaulted me. And so when that happened, Antifa saw it and they started trying to cozy up to me. And they were like, oh, Karlyn, you're more safe with us than you are with them and all that stuff. And so, yeah, I think that that both sides do it. And that's why I've kind of taken the approach that I'm not on either side. I'm on no one's team. I'm extremely far right. I'm actually kind of curious what you said about the far right people in your comments, because I am one of those far right people. So I don't know. I'm curious about your thoughts about that.
I love the far right people. Like, I may not be far right. I just consider myself a more moderate conservative, I guess. But no, there's some people that they go off in the channel and it's like, I'll put a music video at the beginning and end of most of my videos or a movie clip. And then a lot of people, they just can't get past the music video. And then they just freak the hell out. They think I'm on about something else that I'm not about. And then you'll just get these like unintelligible comments that it's either someone can't spell or they're drunk just firing off their fingertips. But I've also got a lot of people from like, you know, like the Proud Boys. I have Nazis on my channel. I have white separatists on my channel. And a lot of them, they're actually very kind. I interviewed a white separatist recently. I was able to interview a white separatist before I was able to interview a former Antifa member. And you know what? By the end of that podcast, I called him my friend, and I would not call him a Nazi, because there is a difference. There are nuances to these conversations, and I would rather make friends than enemies. It doesn't mean I have to sell my soul. Like, it's funny you're sitting here like, because you're like, I'd always heard that you called yourself a fascist. Maybe I can ask you that while we're in person. Is that like an actual label that you take on for yourself?
Yeah. No, I'm deadly serious. Okay, so in my heart of hearts, I'm an anarcho-capitalist, in that I am an anarchist. I do want to abolish the government, because I think the government is just a giant waste of money that just screws everything up and makes things more difficult. Or at least I want to make it as minimal as possible. And so that's like my ideal world, but I still want private property. I'm not a communist. I do not believe in collectivism or any of that, and I want to guard my private property with very big guns or cannons if I want to. And so that's my ideal in my heart of hearts, in my anarcho, capitalist utopia. And I live in New Hampshire, so I happen to be around a lot of these people, which bodes well for me. But the thing of it is I've become convinced, because I was involved with Libertarian Party politics for a couple years. I've become convinced that the Libertarian Party is absolutely hopeless. They're never going to get their shit together. They had a real opportunity that they wasted a couple years ago, and it's just like I've just seen enough of that environment to know that beautiful philosophy is never actually going to work in the real world, because they cannot get their shit together to save their life. And so what I mean when I say I'm a fascist is that I think that we are going to have a choice in this country. I think we are either going to be fascist or communist. I think it's going to be one or the other. And the reality is if we look in through the course of history, fascism is really the only thing that's ever been able to stop communism. And so is fascism my ideal state? Well, no. I think that there's a lot of potentially problematic things that could happen with that as well. But I think that if we find the right fascist, I think that could be a good start. Now, does such a thing exist? Certainly, we can have that debate. But what I will say is I am very open to the idea of completely obfuscating the Constitution on a couple key areas with the left. I am very open to the idea of banning the publication of queer Marxism or anything related to the abolition of gender. I am very open to the idea of literally dragging every single queer book out of every library, school libraries, public libraries, Library of Congress, and burning them in a giant ass bonfire. I am very open to the idea of people going into their local library and stealing queer books and sending them to me so I can burn them in a giant ass bonfire. I'm very open to the idea of putting teachers in jail if they teach kids gender ideology or they teach kids that gender does not exist. I'm very open to the idea of a complete moratorium on all publications and all presentations related to these issues, because I think that queer Marxism is the thing that's going to kill us. I think that teaching kids that gender is not real, which is going to lead to the eventual abolition of the nuclear family, that's the thing that's going to actually kill us. And that is the long, slow death of this country. And so if I have to choose between communism, which I think is going to lead to everyone starving, or fascism, which may not be ideal, but probably will be a better scenario than communism, I have to choose fascism. And so am I completely serious when I say I'm a fascist? I mean, kind of. Sometimes I can be very fascist, but really that's kind of my thought process on it. What do you think?
That is an incredibly interesting take. And I mean, hey, if that's your take and that's your belief, I've spent enough time screaming at people, calling them fascist and Nazis and all that. Like, I ain't going to sit here and do that to you. But what I do wonder is, like, you don't think there's some sort of third option? There's no escape route that has to be one of the two? Because, like, at that point, aren't we playing the same dualistic thinking as Republican, Democrat, Antifa, fascist? Like, it just kind of, do you not see hope for any other kind of third option?
Not in the entire course of human history has any other option worked to stop communism. I mean, can you give me an example of, like, so the reason, okay, so again, I'm not like an apologist for Hitler. I'm not an apologist for the Nazis at all. Obviously, Hitler was the worst person that ever lived. The Nazis were awful. They killed lots of people, all that stuff, all that's bad. But the fact of the matter is that Hitler stopped communism in Germany through fascism. And that's and we've seen other things, like, I mean, Pinochet was throwing them off of helicopters. Like, it's like the only time that anyone has actually stopped communism dead in its tracks was something that resembled fascism. And so, do I think there's a third option? I mean, maybe propose it. I don't know. But, like, and certainly I'd be open to any sort of idea. I'm also open to the idea of, like, a monarchy. I actually like the idea of a monarchy. Maybe that would work. But I do think in order to stop the far left, it is going to necessitate the complete, like, outlawing of their ideology to a certain extent. And, like, I mean, like, a really big crackdown on people being able to put these options out there. Oh, but actually, this might be an important, like, a good clarification. Third option, you mean a third pillar? Maybe.
What do you mean by that?
I don't know. We'll have to ask him. Well, if Boss Bully Boy wants to clarify what he means by that, he's more than welcome to put it in the chat. But what do you think that third option could be?
I don't know what it could be, quite frankly. You know, I used to be very anti-capitalistic. Capitalism's not perfect. I think it's one of the better options we got now. I really don't know. I'm personally hoping for the day that Jesus Christ comes back in a couple months, so we don't got to worry about this crap. But I also have to worry about immediate reality. But what I wonder about the fascistic thing, it's like, don't you think that kind of, like, and again, I'm not, like, shaming your views or anything, like.
Yeah, that's okay. Like that. I don't mind answering questions.
You know, it just almost kind of feels like, to me, when you're saying that, it's kind of like when the communists say, like, oh, yeah, that was bad, and all these people starved and died, but this time we're going to do it right. Like, how do you see what you're saying in regards to fascism is different from that? Just, like, genuine curiosity.
Oh, no, I mean, I fully believe that in a fascist regime, a lot of people would die, just as, like, a communist regime, a lot of people would die. But I think overall, the end result of fascism would lead to a better society, in which more people can thrive and more people can be happy. And again, we're talking about the choice between communism and fascism. I'm not the biggest fan of capitalism in the world. I think that capitalism does have a lot of problems, but overall in our society right now, with our, people might say we don't have free market capitalism. That's fine. But like in our society right now, there's more opportunity than there has ever been to start a small business, to use free tools on the internet or AI, or, really, like, any number of very, very low cost things to start a small business, start one side hustle. You can start several side hustles if you want. You can build a lot of personal wealth just using free tools on the internet if you're smart about it and you're strategic and stuff like that. And so I personally think that I would prefer to continue, in my ideal world, I would prefer to continue with kind of the model we have, continuing to reduce the size of government as much as we possibly can. If I'm being, like, uber pragmatic about it, with something that I actually think is going to happen, because I don't think we're going to end up in a fascist dictatorship anytime soon. I think there's a much bigger chance that the communists are going to try to overthrow the federal government in the next 10 to 15 years than the fascists are going to try to do anything. I don't think that's going to happen. So it's kind of like, you know, when I'm saying I would not be opposed to like a fascist like society, it's because you're putting me in a choice of like, do I want communism or fascism? Well, fascism if I had to choose, but it's not also like my personal ideal state.
That's
Does that
such
make
an
sense?
no, that's an interesting perspective. And for everybody out there thinking I'm a Nazi for sitting here listening to you, fuck off. But like, no, it is an interesting perspective.
Yeah.
And when you bring up the idea of dictatorship, would your idea of a future fascistic America, would that involve a dictator? And if so, what do you think that person should be like?
I would be perfectly fine under the dictatorship of King Nick Fuentes. If I'm being honest about it, I think that he would do a great job. I nominate Nick for future fascist dictator. But again, it really does goes back to like, who is the dictator? Like who is what they're doing? Like what are their values? What type of society are they trying to create? So I think it kind of like all depends on who the person is.
Have there been any historical examples of a good fascistic dictator?
People don't want to hear this, but like people were pretty happy in Hitler's Germany. If I'm being honest about it, if you actually go back and look, like the people of Germany were pretty happy under some of the changes that Hitler made. Also, although again, Hitler was obviously the worst person that ever lived. He's burning in hell. 10 million Jews died in the Holocaust, all that stuff. But like, I mean, in regards to like the people of Germany and what they experienced after he took power, things were a lot better for them than they were prior to him taking power.
Oh, well, I have disagreements on some of it. I do agree with the fact that the Germans did view Hitler as a hero figure. I think even Carl Jung had a discussion on that at one point. It's like, whether we like it or not, he was champion. And I will say, like, again, fuck Hitler. I'm not about Nazism. I'll talk to white separatist, far-right figures all day. I don't care. I want to make friends with everybody. But I will say, I've listened to some of Hitler's speeches because I do the AI translated. There are some things in there to where if you could imagine yourself being in a scenario at that time, how that would be enticing to you. Now, me looking back and knowing what happened after all that, I'm just like, personally, no, I'm good. But I think what I'm hearing when you're saying that is really, this country is struggling. It's been pushed to the fucking brink. And you're just looking for something like substantive in a world that seems to lack substance and nuance and control or coherency, accountability. And I think that's human. So, like, I get that. I don't agree with the ideology. May the best man win. May the best ideas play out in the end. But at the same time, it's just like, there's also just kind of a sadness listening to you talk about it. And again, I don't mean this in any judgmental way. But it's like, when I hear people saying that, it feels like all we're given are two fucking options. All the time. It's just like, we all have this idea. We just got this or we got this. South Park said it best. We got the douche or the turd sandwich. I feel like it's the same thing with communism and fascism. It's like either way, someone's getting shat on. Like, I don't know. I just wish that society hadn't got to this point where we constantly have to feel like there's two options for freaking everything. But, while I don't agree with your values and your views on that, like, I can respect it and I can say I can understand it.
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, like, I actually do think the far left is going to try to overthrow the federal government violently in the next 10 to 15 years. And I think once they do it, I think they're actually going to win, because I think the right has no effing clue what's going on and they are completely unprepared for what's coming. I also think the Democrats have no clue what's going on and they're completely prepared for what's coming. And I've heard enough far left groups talk about this, like explicitly talk about this, that I think that something is actually going to happen. So again, it's like, at some point we have to, at least this is how I look at it. We have to hinge into reality, and we can't live in this state of like, here is my ideal and I will settle for nothing less than my ideal. Like, hard decisions are going to have to be made. And I think that there is a reality that we are going to face where we are going to I don't think the Civil War is red versus blue. I think that all that's bullshit. I think it's radical revolutionary socialist and communist versus the federal government. And then we're really going to have some decisions to make then. And so I think that that sometimes adults have to make decisions from two less than ideal options. And again, like, I'm perfectly fine keeping capitalism. I have no issue with, well, I mean, I should say I have very few issues with capitalism, because under capitalism I can have as many businesses as I want, and under capitalism I can make my own money, and I have my house, and I don't have people coming to take it, and I don't have people trying to abolish parental rights, which is something the left, you know, wants to do, or any of these things. Under fascism, I mean, like, let's just say that Nick Fuentes ends up as king of the world or whatever. Like, he's a Catholic. I'm not a Catholic. I don't particularly want to be a Catholic, and that might be really inconvenient to me if he mandated Catholicism as the required faith or whatever. Not that I think he would actually do that, but I mean, a fascist dictator could potentially do that. But again, if I have to choose between communism, which I think is going to lead to all of us starving, or pretending to be a Catholic under the future dictatorship of King Fuentes, then I'm going to choose pretending to be a Catholic. Like, at least you get to go to church and listen to beautiful music. And so that's kind of how I think about it is, you know, adults sometimes have to make adult decisions, and we don't always get a pony, and unicorns don't even exist. And sometimes we have to choose between two less than ideal options. So that's how I see it.
Well, I certainly have a lot of disagreements, but that's a pretty damn interesting perspective, I gotta say. Like, wow. I can understand what you're putting out there. Like I said, doesn't mean you have to agree with everything, but I mean, it's good for thought. I mean, this is why we're supposed to talk to each other, to get the nuance of how we're actually fucking feeling about this shit.
Totally. I would recommend that you also check out, I guess there's a lot of things that you could check out, but the documentary I'm going to recommend specifically is not Europa, The Last Battle, for people who keep putting it in the chat. I'm not going to recommend people start with Europa. Europa's 12 hours long, but I would recommend that you check something out called The Greatest Story Never Told, and just watch it and just consider the ideas. And again, you don't have to agree with it, but that's where I started with some people on my channel when I was first starting to think about these ideas, and I think it's probably a pretty good place to start, because there's a lot of unraveling to do, as you know.
I can already tell people are watching this freaking the hell out, thinking I'm getting radicalized right now.
No, I mean, well, like, but here's the thing. It's like, so when Antifa outside of Portland said to me, "You're a fascist," I said, "Yeah." If they call me a Nazi, I go, yeah. If they call me a racist, I go, yeah. And it's not necessarily that I'm like very pro-fascism or Nazism or racism or any of these things, although I certainly do have my moments. But like, it's more that, like, so what, they say that we're radicalized, so that what they say we're extremists. They can say whatever they want. People lie on the internet all the time. And it's kind of like you take the power out of the words when you just say, yeah, okay, whatever. It doesn't matter to me what you call me. It doesn't matter to me what label you put on me. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter what you think of me. And so it is what it is. So that's kind of how I see it.
And I mean, I've done the same thing, even though I don't really have fascistic sympathies. Like, I've done the same thing. Yeah, I'm a fascist. Yeah, here's a Zeke Heil for you. Like, piss off. Like, That's the best you can do is throw it back in their face.
Exactly. Well, Ty, I do want to thank you for coming on here today. Is there anything else you want to make sure we chat about before we wrap up?
I can't really think of anything. I just want to say thank you for having me on. Thank you for challenging me a little bit on some of this, and, you know, for giving me the space to speak. And I just want to say, if you do have any former Antifa members that are watching this, even if your friend would like to come on, you know, so maybe I can give them a face-to-face apology and be able to hash some of that out. Like, I want to be able to host these conversations. Yes, again, I'm a little minnow. Wasn't as big. Didn't know what a zine was till about an hour ago. Like, but I want to learn, because those 2 years of my life took so much from me. They took my mental health. They took my physical health. It took my family. It took my friends. And I really believe in my heart of hearts that the best way to fight Antifa is to have other former Antifa members speak out. And I even want to say to you, or anybody who might be listening, if, you know, I know you guys like bicker back and forth, but if you were Tim Pool or Andy, or any of these people that are like actually interested in Antifa, want to learn about Antifa, invite former Antifa members onto your channel. You know, I think that's going to be the best way we can fight this, because otherwise there's going to be legions of Antifa brats in the comment section using all their cult mantras. We're not an organization. We're not real. You can't actually belong to us. But once people start stepping up and that floodgate is opened, and people start saying, this is my experience, this is what I saw with my own 2 eyes, this is what I did, these are the crimes I committed, this is everything, that takes the ammunition away from them. So I just want to put that out to any other former Antifa members who may be listening. Like, speak out, because now is the time. And quite frankly, the law is on our side. You might have to confess some things that you did that weren't so great, but that's going to have to be the price. I feel like guys like me and girls like me, not girls like me, but the guys and ladies of Antifa, this is the price to pay. Like, it's our time to step forward. Otherwise, they're just going to steamroll everything and everybody. And at the end of the day, they're not that powerful. They're a bunch of fucking dweebs. We can take them on. Like,
Well, I want to definitely thank you for that. And I think that, definitely if they're former Antifa members listening, I would encourage them to speak out. I would encourage them to go on your channel and have a chat about it. And I'd encourage you to come back here and see some of the evidence that we have. And maybe that'll help you, as you're working through all of the different things that happened, to be able to make sense of some of the things that you saw that you didn't understand at the time. And so definitely want to invite you to come back here. We would love to have you. And I hope you don't feel like I was too harsh on calling things out.
I loved it.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
I knew like talking to you was going to be fiery, and I was like, "Oh, this is going to be a great day."
Well, I hope it was okay, because I did appreciate the fact that you're willing to come and talk to us and have the conversation. And like I said, certainly I think you've experienced something on the far left. I'm not quite sure what it was exactly, because there's there's a lot of different chaos on the far left. But I think that all experience is interesting, and we do definitely appreciate you having your channel and talking about these issues and stuff like that, because more people talking about these issues is always better. So guys, I do want to encourage everyone, make sure you check out the Triple B Collective. I did pin the link to the top of the chat if you would like to do that. And Ty, are there any other places that people can find you online?
Hell no, fuck social media. YouTube's all you got.
Well, be careful. Make sure you're backing up your videos someplace, because you never know what could happen. Start a Rumble channel or something. You can stream to both at the same time, so it works out well. So guys, I appreciate it. And Ty, I'm going to let you go, and I'm going to do a little wrap up with my audience. Is that cool? I'm just going to, the super chats are mostly not related to you. So I was just kind of like, hey, coming off that camera. I don't want to, keep you here for the super chat part, but I do want to acknowledge those people. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So just go ahead and hop off now then.
Yeah, just hop off, and we'll see you later. And I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Peace and love, you guys. Thanks for having me.
Have a good one.
You too.
Let's do some super chats, shall we? Let's do some super chats. 7 Lilies. 7 Lilies with the fist. I do appreciate you being a member of the channel. I apologize I didn't show this on the stream. I just didn't want to get into this discussion if I'm being like real honest about it. So we got BT, a member chat. Does bro know that Antifa were literally the same people that the National Socialists fought against in the streets of Germany? They absolutely were not Nazis. They wouldn't be the aggressors. I would say that, like, listen, like he is obviously not that far down the red pill path yet, and you can't force people to go down that particular path. Swallowing that particular red pill is very, very, very difficult. So let's just give him some time, okay? Let's just give him some time on that one. We don't have to feed everyone the JQ pill at the same time. I appreciate that, RK. This is how you start a movement, Karlyn. Bring Ty on board and work together. There's good opportunity here. You know what? I do think there is. I don't think that, listen, obviously, I don't think, well, I think I was nice about it, but I obviously don't think that he was actually an Antifa. I don't think he was actually an Antifa at all. But that doesn't mean he wasn't involved in some far left stuff and new far left people. And I do still think that that's valuable. And I think, from my perception, I think that he does have good intentions, and positive intention means a lot to me. I also, I remember what it was like to be at that stage when I was first waking up, guys. I remember it was very, very clear to me that he was in a very similar stage that I was in, maybe like in 2021, when I had already spent a year doing this stuff, and I was literally just starting to figure things out after a year. And so, like, I think there is opportunity. I think that he needs a little bit more time to cook. And that's fine. Everyone has their own process. There's nothing wrong with that. We're all on our own timelines. We're all on our own journey, right? He just needs a little more time to cook. I think he experienced something. I'm not sure it was Antifa. Hey, thank you, Bio, for the $20 super chat. I really appreciate that. Is there a difference between fascism and National Socialism? Dumb question. Yeah, there is probably a difference, but I'm not going to get into the... Listen, I don't say I'm a fascist to get into a philosophical discussion about fascism. I don't know all the ins and outs of either fascism or National Socialism. I would say there are probably some nuanced differences. I'm being colloquial on the internet when I say that, so which I think that most people understand. I don't want to be president, Tolkien fan. Please. I do not want to be president. Nick Fuentes needs to be president. That's what needs to happen. 2 ladies, thank you for the super chat. Thank you, Triple B, for coming online and talking to our research group. Thank you, Karlyn, as always. You know, I support this work always. I know you do, 2 ladies, and I appreciate it. And so now I'm looking at the chat. Like, what did you guys think? What did you guys think? Some of you were being uppity in the chat, and that's fine. You're allowed to be uppity sometimes, as long as you're not being uppity towards me. What did you guys think? Let me see your opinions in the chat. Hang on, I'll even put the comments on the screen so people can see them. Yeah, I thought he was a very nice guy. I don't think he's former Antifa. And I think it was genuine. I think that that's true, Matt. I think he was genuine, but I do not think he was former Antifa. Now, and again, it's like, it's not to say that he doesn't have information and experience that could be valuable, but you know, third option idea, first draft constitutionalist priest, 1865, sovereign, nationals, one and all. Thoughts? I have to think about that, Oregon born, but I do appreciate the super chat. I do appreciate that. Oh, man. For everyone that says I'm mean all the time, I want everyone to know that I was on my very best behavior. Because I legitimately didn't want to scare him. I didn't want to scare him. I didn't want to, he's a nice guy. I'm not going to do that when people are on the channel. If you think the commies will launch a violent revolution in the next 10 to 15 years, what evidence do you have that they're training for war? I mean, watch the channel, Peter. We've covered this stuff. I'm doing that. These groups are only doing basic rifle and nothing like small unit tactics. Well, Peter, you should check out the Revolutionary Communists of America YouTube channel, because they have whole videos talking about their extremely warlike and militaristic strategy. And they're doing it out in the open. So I would say they're doing a little bit more than basic rifle training. There are many gun groups on the far left. It's not just like the John Brown Gun Club or the Socialist Rifle Association or any of that. And so they are actually doing stuff, but like, how much do you think that they're going to do before they try to overthrow the government? Like, they're already getting their pieces in place in the military. You know, there are military people in the far left, right? You may not know this. I don't know. The military colleges have been completely corrupted for a while. So there are absolutely many far left people in the military right now. Also, yeah, organizing through the unions. That's another great point there. And so, yeah, there is evidence, and I do appreciate the super chat. Tolkien fan, not knowing about zines or propaganda pamphlets were a bit suspect for me. Yeah, that was very suspect for me. But also, but if he was just on drugs a lot and that's what the extent of his involvement, it's like, I can see a reality in which someone would be hanging around Antifa just to get access to drugs. And so they're not actually buying into the ideology. They're just hanging around and and this is like got to be a factor, right? He's saying he's helping them out in these direct actions. He's doing all this and that, but he was like basically and I hate to use this, I hate to use this term, but he was more kind of like a useful idiot more than anything else. And so it's like he was doing their bidding because he was their source they were his source for drugs, essentially, but wasn't necessarily involved in the ideology of it. Yeah, it's more like, I wouldn't say we talked to a Richard. I wouldn't say that. Richard is a mentally ill person that is taken advantage of, but maybe when he was doing drugs, maybe that's kind of like what he was like. Maybe when he was on drugs, like, again, I wouldn't classify him as a mentally ill person. He seems like a very nice, like, adjusted person now. But if someone is doing drugs all day, every day, maybe that's what he was like back then. You know what I'm saying? But I do think the purpose of it is good in what he's doing. If he can get former Antifa members to talk to him, I think that would be a really good thing, because I'm not going to go and hunt out former Antifa members. If they show up, I'll certainly talk to them. But what I worry about the most in this particular case is, again, it's just like the conservative talking points that I heard over and over again. That's what worries me the most about him. It was almost like he had a list of the top conservative talking points that we've heard over and over and over again. And and he's going down the list and he's like checking all of the conservative talking points. And it's like narrative, 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 narrative. And I don't think that he's being disingenuous. I don't. I think that again, I went through this is what I'm saying. Like, this happened to me. So when I first left the left, it could be his chat, that could be something that's going on. But when I first left the left, I was consuming a lot of conservative media because I just was. That was that I was trying to learn a new thing. And so I was consuming a lot of conservative media. And so I was speaking the conservative talking points because that was the media I was consuming. Now, when I stopped listening to conservatives and I only started listening to primary source evidence, the conservative talking points sound insane now, right? And I think this is true for many people. So I think many people may be able to have some, like, you can be sympathetic to this to a certain extent. Many of you, I know this because you told me this, many of you got really into conservative media. And then as soon as you started watching my content and as soon as you started seeing the actual primary sources, you look at conservative media now and you're like, what the fuck? Right? Because there is such a huge disconnect between conservative media and the primary sources. And so it's one of those things where it's like, if he's just a normal guy and this is the content he's consuming because this is the side that he thinks he's politically on, that's what's influencing the talking points. It's not necessarily being malicious. It's not necessarily being a fraud. It's that he has not seen the information that you and I have seen. He has not read the zines. He has not watched the training. He may have lived out some certain aspects of this in his real life, right? But he didn't have access to all the information because he was doing drugs at the time. And this was his place where he got drugs. And so I'm trying to be just like uber sympathetic because I don't get the sense, I don't get the vibe from that guy that he's disingenuous. I don't think he's a plant. I think he was involved in something related to the far left that he still is working out. And he was doing a lot of drugs at the time. So he may not have a full sense of even what he was involved in. And he's trying to figure it out. And I meant what I said on the show, guys. It took me years to figure this shit out. It took me years. If you go back and you watch some of my older socialism videos, I had no fucking clue. It took me literally years to go from where I started to where I am now. And so I really want to treat him respectfully. And I know that people have their opinions about this, but I don't think that he comes from a bad place. I think he's still figuring it out. And I think that he doesn't even really know exactly what he was involved with. And that's probably just part of the circumstances of it all. But I don't think that we used to all think that socialism was word salad. We used to all believe some of the same talking points that he was saying. And it's not that we were being bad, and it's not that we were malicious, and it's not that we were deliberately misleading people. We didn't know. You don't know what you don't know. Just like he hasn't watched Europa just like he hasn't watched The Greatest Story Never Told, just like he hasn't watched some of this more far-right content because he's afraid of being radicalized to the far right. He doesn't know what he doesn't know. And now it's kind of like on him. He's starting to get more of a spotlight on him. Now it's kind of on him to decide which path is he going to take. Is he going to take the conservative bullshit narrative path, or is he going to do his own research into the primary sources and probably come to see things in a different way? And that's got to be his choice. But I do think that the probably the best end result of today's interview, listen, we got to know a new person. Nothing wrong with that. It's always nice to know to meet new people who are trying to do something on the internet. And I do think he is trying. And I think that that's a positive thing. But I hope that today we were able to plant the seed of like, maybe a little bit more research needs to be done. And we're more than happy to help him do it. And we're more than happy to show him the things that he maybe hasn't seen yet. Because there was a time when everyone here hadn't seen the things that we saw. And so I hope he does. I hope he takes me up on it. I really do. I really do mean that. I hope he watches the content. I hope he hangs out in the chat sometimes. I hope he asks questions. And I'm, of course, more than willing to communicate with him and share with him any information that I have. And so, you know, I'm more than happy to do that, but he's got to take the first step to do it. And we'll see if he does. It's like he was a prospect or hang around for Antifa, but never patched. Yeah, I think that's actually a really good way to put it, Tim. And you know what? That's a valid experience to look at. He still had horrific experiences with the far left. And so that's still something that we want to look at and we want to make sure we learn from. And that's all fine, well, and good. Especially since learning the language of a true leftist, that has opened my eyes the most. Well, someone was saying earlier in the chat before we started, they were like bemoaning the fact that once you learn the language of the left, you hear it everywhere. And isn't that the truth, right? So I appreciate that too, ladies. Julie, I think I found under an Antifa bookstore, I found an Antifa bookstore near my home. Want me to collect the propaganda for your library? Yes, please. Yes. 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 I definitely want that. And guys, there's going to be some stuff coming out for the Center of Left Wing Studies because I owe all the people who are interested in volunteering an email. I know I owe you an email or a Discord message or something like that. I know I've been sick. I'm so sorry. It's just been because I've been so fucking sick. I'm so behind on so many things. But I do want to say, as part of the communication that's going to be coming out for the Center for Left Wing Studies, I do want to start putting together what I'm going to call like a team of people that are willing to go into bookstores in their own area or that are willing to go and attend events in their own area. And we'll help you find the events and we'll train you how to do it and get their propaganda. So I want to try to create a team of people that are willing to like go do these things to get the far left information. And I'm going to be doing kind of like a call to action for that, for lack of a better word, for people to be able to like raise their hands and say, I am willing to do this. Here is the area that I'm in. You don't need to give us your real name if you don't want to. It looks like you've given us your real name, but people don't have to give us their real name. And so I want to start creating kind of like a database that is only available to me of these people that are willing to go into the real world and do this stuff. Because as you guys know, people are starting to figure out who I am, and therefore it's going to make it more difficult for me to go undercover. And so I may have to retire from going undercover, and I'm really upset about it, and I really don't want to. But the fact of the matter is I can't be in all places at all times, and there's a lot of stuff for us to cover. And so even though I don't want to pass the torch on to other people, I may be put into a position of being forced to, and I hate it, and I don't like it. Yeah, I actually have 2 of these. I bought 2 of them accidentally. So I'm going to give one away in a giveaway. I should have given one to Chelly before I left. Yeah, my name got too big. My face got too known. All that stuff. They're looking for me now. I got put on a fucking hit list wall. I got away with it that time. But yeah, I will advise you on how to wear a disguise. I will advise you on how to format your pronouns. I will advise you on what to say and what to do. But guys, the biggest thing, honestly, if you want to go undercover with the far left and you want to go into their spaces, the biggest thing that you can do, the most important thing that you can do is to learn their language. If you are new to my work, you have got to become fluent in their language first. I cannot tell you how important this is because when you go into far left spaces, you have to be able to speak to them in language that they understand, and you have to be able to understand what they're saying to you. And listen, I've gone into far left places where I kind of kept my head down and I didn't talk to anyone. That's certainly something that you can get away with, but like it's going to be so much easier for you if you learn the language. Okay? Yeah. Yeah. I gained weight to go undercover with the left, and now I'm losing weight to go undercover. Yeah, that's my next big disguise. My next big disguise is I'm going to get my ass to the gym and lose weight. But you know what? I kind of don't even want to. Do you want to know why? Because I have to hear from conservative MAGA retards almost every single day on the internet about how I'm fat and ugly and I'm fat and ugly and I'm fat and ugly and I'm fat and ugly. And that's the only thing they can ever say to me because they can't intellectually defeat my ideas. The only thing the MAGA retards can say to me is I'm fat and ugly. I'm fat and and so I'm kind of like, do I want to in my head? I'm like, the very best disguise I can get is losing weight. Honestly, like that's honestly like the next greatest disguise I could have. But at the same time, I'm kind of like, fuck you, MAGA. I don't have to go to the gym if I don't fucking want to. I'm a 44-year-old married woman. I don't have to look sexy for you. I don't want to lose weight just because you guys are talking about my weight all the ever-loving fucking time. So I have mixed feelings about it. That's kind of how I feel. I have mixed feelings about it because I don't actually care. I am not self-conscious about how I look, like, at all. My husband doesn't care. My husband, I promise you, he's absolutely fine with how I look. And really that's like the only that's all I care about. That's all I care about is if I don't care, if I'm not self-conscious about how I look and my husband is happy, really no one else's opinion fucking matters. But like I'm stubborn, and so if people are just gonna call me fat and ugly every day, and like I'm gonna be like, I actually don't need to lose weight for you. I actually don't. I actually really don't need to do shit for you at all, you stupid motherfuckers. So that's kind of how I feel about it. That's how I feel about it. I may go to the gym and lose weight. I may not go to the gym and lose weight. And either way, it's no one's fucking business. But if I did lose weight, it would be as my next great disguise to be able to go undercover again. That would be like literally the only reason I would do it. I'd be like, I can make myself look different if I lose a fuck ton of weight and all this stuff. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of to make myself look different now. I don't know. Well, the problem is, I dress like Antifa, like in my normal life. It's so funny because like when I got to Portland, originally, one of the first things I did is I went down to the ICE facility and I was wearing like black leggings and a black hoodie, and I had the hood up over my head and I had my black sunglasses on, and Nick Sorter actually came out to the ICE facility just to meet me because he was excited that I was there because he had just discovered my work. Nick Sorter comes up to me and he's like, "Are you undercover?" And I said, no, I'm literally just wearing my own clothes. It just so happens that my clothes look like I'm an Antifa because I wear black hoodies and black leggings and sunglasses and all that. Like, you're seeing me wear red today. This is a very, very rare example of me wearing a different color that's not black because truly and sincerely, I dress like Antifa in real life. And that is like my natural fucking habitat. And it was so funny. Nick Sorter comes up to me. He's like looking at me, and I reached out my hand like, "Hey, Nick Sorter," and he's like, "Are you in disguise?" I'm like, "No, this is just what I wear." Like, this is actually just what I wear. Anyway, guys, I have another show tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. Jennifer and I are going to be coming back to do Disenrage tonight. We're going to be talking about Dolores Cannon. Disenrage is a show that we do on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. where we talk about spirituality. And I'm going to talk about blocking Enrique Tarrio on Twitter because Enrique Tarrio, did you guys know that the leader of the Proud Boys is a massive fucking retard? Can I just tell this story real quick? The leader of the Proud Boys is a massive, 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 massive fucking retard. Because the leader of the Proud Boys has been in my replies on Twitter for like the last 24 hours, bitching and complaining. Like, he's doing the typical like MAGA retard bullshit. And I kind of let it go for a second because I'm like, he's the leader of the Proud Boys. Maybe we don't want to block him just yet. But like it got to the point where earlier today, Enrique Tarrio demanded that I come on his show tonight. You can go into his page and see it. Enrique Tarrio said, "You will come on my show tonight." And I said, "The fuck I will. I have a show at 5 p.m. and I have a show at 9 p.m. I'm basically streaming from 5 p.m. probably up until midnight. Like, I am not coming on your show now." He's like, and Enrique Tarrio responded to me and he was like, "I find it hard to believe that you're doing this much streaming." And I was like, well, bro, you could have done very basic research to find out that I stream Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Eastern Time, like consistently. And on Tuesday nights, I have another show that I do at 9 p.m. So on Tuesdays, I'm basically streaming. I'm getting a 2-hour break today. That's a very rare thing for me to get a 2-hour break on a Tuesday. I'm basically streaming from 5 p.m. up until midnight every single Tuesday. So Enrique, if you want me to come on your fucking show, then you can slide into my fucking DMs and ask me and actually schedule it. And then he continued to say some dumb retard shit. And I was like, I can't even. And I blocked him. So I blocked a member of the Proud Boys, the leader of the Proud Boys, because the leader of the Proud Boys were demanding that I fucking cancel my show with Jennifer tonight, and I'm not gonna fucking do that because I don't want to. Hey, Triple B Collective, emailed you a pic of my old zines. Awesome. Actually, you know what? I fucking love that. We love looking at old zines, and so I really do appreciate it. And again, I want everyone to thank Triple B Collective for coming on the channel. And, you know, we may have grilled them a little bit, and that's okay because that's natural that we do that. But we really do appreciate it, bro. And we hope you hang out with us, and you know, we hope we continue to communicate and all of that. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. So, yeah. Anyway, maybe I'll go do a Twitter space. Maybe in my 2-hour break, I will go do a Twitter space and I will give the retards of the internet another chance to interact with me. Maybe I'll unblock Enrique Tarrio and we can all invite him to the Twitter space where he can come and face me like a man. I did a Twitter space last night and we tried to get Enrique Tarrio to come into the Twitter space last night because he was complaining in my feed the whole fucking time. Enrique Tarrio wanted to say, you don't actually do any work. And I said, well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And so we tried to get Enrique Tarrio to come into the Twitter space last night, and he was a massive pussy, and he didn't. And none of the MAGA retards that have been complaining about me online, he came into the space either. I was like, does anyone want to come and debate me? Does anyone want to come? I will let anyone talk. And none of them came to face me because they're all massive cowards. They're all massive cowards. They're all reeing and complaining and stuff like that. So maybe I'll go to a Twitter space. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll just hang out in the Twitter space. And if anyone wants to come and debate me or talk to me, maybe they can. Maybe that's what I'll do. But I will be back here at 9 p.m. tonight, guys. Again, we are going to be doing Dolores Cannon at 9 p.m. for Disenrage. And I hope some people come back and hang out. And we're not talking about politics. And we're not talking about the fact that Zoran Mandami is going to get elected mayor of New York City tonight. And we're not talking about any of that. We are just talking about Dolores Cannon and past lives and choosing your death and all that stuff. And that's what we're going to do. Okay. That's what we're going to do. Anyway, I'm going to take a little break. Look for me for that Twitter space and maybe we'll have some fun. And I'll see you guys soon. Take care, guys. Have a good one.
How are you feeling? How long have you been here?
3 months, May 17th.
And what brought you here?
That's difficult to answer.
playing the piano for people has eventually resulted in your being here in the hospital?
That's difficult to answer.